If I had a chip that would allow me to interact with my computer without me touching it, that's awesome.
The kid is not a slave to their parents.
Yeah.
But the kid is wholly reliant.
So there is a possibility that we don't even need chips in our brains.
Use AI, use our brains to communicate with the machines to find a better approach of increasing intelligence organically, maybe.
One of the solutions is to not become like a slave to AI.
Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of Beyond the Algorithm. New rebranding incoming. Today's episode we're discussing transhumanism.
Yeah.
So let's jump straight in. The first question I wanted to raise is quite positive. Brain-computer interfaces. We've heard a lot about them in the news. They're being developed. I mean, Neuralink, the most famous of these, doing a lot of good at the moment for people who have ALS and other full paralysis situations, where this is really giving back the ability to live. Of course, they're going into a lot of research now over how to cure blindness and how to cure full body paralysis as well using these chips. Really, the implications are endless. So this first question is, what is the potential for good of BCIs? And let's start with Arsha.
Okay, so brain-computer interfaces. So the whole thing behind these is, in the long run, first of all, we as humans, our output per second is kind of low. So the way that we communicate is very slow compared to, I would say, robots or AI. So the way we want to go is be able to keep up the pace with them so we can actually communicate with the robots in a way that they help us to figure out the things that we don't know, like answering the questions. Because as we were discussing, the answer to everything is the universe, but the kind of question that you ask defines is very important rather than the answer, because we know the answer is the universe. We just need to find the right question to ask. So the whole thing that Elon always said about Neuralink is we have to take Neuralink because we need to increase the speed that we communicate. And if we don't take Neuralink, we're going to extinct, because robots are going to be way more intelligent than us. So that's the whole argument behind at least Neuralink as one of the startups which doing BCIs. Of course, there are a lot of side effects regarding, security or
We'll get into
like be controlled. But I think this is one of the good things about BCIs, to be able to enhance our cognitive abilities this way.
Ismail, your thoughts as another AI innovator?
I would say BCIs are one of the most interesting parts of the industry at the moment that's developing, especially with Neuralink and some other European companies who are trying to push the frontier. And I think the part where this probably will affect the majority of people is when it starts becoming mainstream in terms of you can just go pick up a Neuralink like easy.
Yeah.
And at that point, it becomes the same thing as AI, where it's like you were saying, Arsha, like if you don't have a Neuralink, you're behind. Right?
Yeah.
And I do think it's quite interesting, because having a sort of brain-computer interface allows you to do a lot of tasks that we do by hand, like Googling or whatever it is, and you just do it instantly in your brain, which is like crazy. And I think it will definitely, again, change how we as humans work and communicate. But I think at the moment, as with AI, the awareness and adoption of the technology is more so in specific niches. So as you were saying, Julian, that at the moment they're trying to focus on people with disabilities and conditions that would otherwise, like, they would not be able to do things if it wasn't for these brain-computer interfaces. And I think that is, like with AI and the whole lot of acceleration, this is what's going to accelerate brain-computer interfaces. But at the end of the day, there's always going to come a point where it branches out into not just the niche it came from. So I'm really interested to see where it goes. But I think from here I'll probably lead on to one of you guys.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, and like past the communicative nature of brain-computer interfaces, because what you've both said, I think, Ismail, you've extrapolated on this a little bit further than Arsha, but ultimately our bit per second output, when we talk about communication, it's natural language communication, rather than actually a lot of the subconscious, non-natural language communication that goes on. Right, body language, pheromonal communication, like these are huge components that actually provide a huge bit depth, technically speaking, to communication. So this is really enhancing our ability to communicate with robots. But past that, Perry and Daniel, how do you guys see the rise of brain-computer interfaces positively impacting humanity?
So, of course, we've covered the communication front.
Yep.
That's like a subcategory within the bigger branch of intelligence. So, like I've said before, there are two ways, because we see a problem, we can't be smarter. Well, maybe in the future we cannot be smarter than the machines. So we have to increase our ability. How are we going to do that? Either we're going to do that organically, or we're going to do that through machines. So we're going to try and have both, maybe put a machine inside of us.
Can we do it organically? Like, what do you mean by organic?
So organically, like increasing IQ
Oh.
through something, a more natural process.
Enhanced cognitive training.
Enhanced,
Like, sorry, you've raised the organic vision. Frank Herbert had this nailed in Dune. The whole universe of Dune is underpinned by the one fundamental law that man shall not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind. And so you have these mentat processors who have been trained to compute data at huge volumes in the same way that an AI would do that now. Really interesting vision, but sorry, Daniel, please.
No, it's good. So yeah, right now, we have like a 200 millisecond sort of, like that's our maximum, like transfer of information, or like I know the figure is 200 milliseconds, which is literally like 10 times or 100 times slower than a computer. So we are very far behind in terms of processing power. So, and as for now, we cannot find an organic process. So we've been pushed to the sort of more technological front. There's been a question of maybe to take a different approach, we can use technology to harness some sort of more natural process, because if we don't follow more natural processes, like
We
they
become
can be
dependent.
threats.
Yeah.
They can be threats. Like, it's not really that natural to insert a computer into our brain. Like, there's so many complications
Yeah,
in that. Like,
for sure.
how are we gonna last with that? Is it gonna rust? Like, simple stuff. Like, was it gonna rust? Maybe not. We use advanced materials.
Yeah,
Is
we
it-
use bioorganic metals, titanium and other.
but we don't know how long that's going to last with organic material. There's no empirical research there. Theoretically, maybe. But empirically, it's a bit of a gamble. So I guess we have to sort of take that gamble. Maybe there have been thoughts of using technology to get us out of using technology. Sounds weird, but it's like you see a post on social media saying, don't go on social media. Technology influencing us to not use technology. So maybe, I don't know, use AI, use our brains to communicate with the machines to find a better approach of increasing intelligence organically. Maybe.
For sure.
But as of now, I mean, positively using Neuralink, like Musk was talking about, not all this high level stuff about like how we're going to communicate with machines, but literally just say, let's say you have an app on your phone and it says, oh, you've been predicted to get a stroke in 10 years. Wow, that's really good. You can like try and mitigate that.
Actionable
That'd be
insights.
Amazing. Like, oh, I'm not scheduled, but I'm sort of I'm going to get cancer in 5 years. You wouldn't know that if you were to get a checkup, and most people don't really go for a checkup because it's scary.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So it opens up like all these different ways of better well-being. Yeah. Arsha, were you gonna jump in there?
Yeah, so there are a lot of good things that it can lead to. First, I need your opinion, Parry, on the advantage, so I can discuss the disadvantages or like potential concerns.
Yeah, we're gonna get onto the risks of melding man and machine in a sec. But yeah, Perry, how do you see the positive benefit to humanity of a brain-computer interface such as Neuralink?
Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure it's inevitable and it's going to happen to a certain level at least. And all I can see is that, well, there are benefits, obviously, like less kind of traditional sickness, like the old-fashioned way of like getting cancer, getting different, like schizophrenia. All that could be mitigated, I think, and it could go as far as actually like treating all the diseases. It could, I think. But on the other hand, it will be something to control a huge population at the same time. So I still am thinking, and I believe what we're going to need in the future is strong engineers who will be able to control, like everyone should have a certain level of power to control their own brains, the brains of their people, and not let it be hacked, because it's not so hard to hack a chip. No. So what I'm thinking is that in the future it's going to be a war of a very interesting cybersecurity war of brains that will happen. So
well, it's interesting because I was expecting a far greater list of benefits.
Can I add one more benefit?
Please.
Yeah. So a big part of health is individuality. So maybe me eating an apple is really, really good for me because I'm from England, let's say. But someone, let's say, from Africa doesn't usually eat apples because they don't really grow in Africa, right? So eating an apple could be bad for them. Well, not or suboptimal. Yeah. So finding these little things of individual differences is really important for health. There's like, you could go to a doctor and they could give you a diet, but that's not going to help. So one way they do this is they say take a blood test or take a methylated test to see what your deficiencies are, what you're not deficient in, whatever. Yeah. And I could believe that Neuralink will give you an array of different like specific things that you're deficient in or whatever. You can really tailor that experience to you. And from this, I would say that is the pinnacle of like biological advancement in terms of health. Like that, like what more do you want?
And it's on the fly-in site. I think that's the other side of this. A blood test, like I know this is big in the bodybuilding industry because you have to make sure that you're on top of your body if you're taking steroids to enhance function. But you need to make sure that you're doing it in a safe manner. And these people are getting bloods done every 2 weeks, sometimes every week. But this would be day to day, minute to minute, even like insights to the second.
Yeah.
And like you say, these are personal insights. These aren't generic, one size fits all. This diet works for some people. You should give it a go. It's this diet works for this picture. You fit this picture.
Yeah,
this
and
will
it's
work.
definite, right? Yeah. It's 100%, well, I would like to think 100% definite. You can't run away from that.
Yeah, for sure. So
I think there is one big advantage that we need to bear in mind. I think this is the only way that we can survive as human race as well. That's one of the most strong argument, I would say, because otherwise we're not going to keep up the race with another inorganic being. So we're going to just get extinct, and that's the argument. That's the like long-term argument, but the short-term benefit is usually like health. Imagine like you can change someone's life, like a paralyzed person, with giving them Neuralink, which is great. But in the long run, I think it's just, as you said, Parry, it's inevitable.
But this is slightly speculative insofar as we're going off these. This is like these are silicon-based life forms rather than just machines. Like when you say it's the greatest argument is this is the only way that we can survive. I think that what Daniel has said in terms of enhancing organic function needs to be the route we push. Because if we don't, we create dependencies. And in the same way that we see the pharmaceutical industry create dependencies to sell chips, not chips yet, but certainly a lot of drugs, if we create a population dependent on a certain, on anything, frankly, you are dependent on the producer of that. It reduces the level of personal autonomy, necessarily. So do you see this past the speculation? Do you see data indicating that we would be unable to enhance our function?
I would say it's going to be very slow to enhance in an organic way.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
literally,
for sure.
I'm not joking. There's no way
Yeah.
right now for us to increase intelligence. Yes, education to like an average of 5 points.
Yeah.
Excuse me, 5 points when I'm AI, whatever, it's literally borderlining 160, 156 or 160 right now.
Yeah, and to be fair, AI and these BCIs might actually provide us this path. It might be that these provide us the necessary tools and insights to make meaningful change. Because, agreed, it's going to be a slow process.
It's going to be a very slow process. I don't think we create dependencies if we have the right approach, though. The thing about cyborgs is not, of course, there's always this question of who's going to control us, with us as normal people, like in society, taking BCIs. But if everyone is going to merge, and don't look at this as a perspective of like external thing in our body, I would say that's going to lead to creating another species. So we wouldn't call ourselves human at that point. We're going to be just a mix of organic and inorganic being.
So this brings us on to the risks.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. One more. I just thought. So the biggest picture right now is how we're going to reduce entropy.
Yes,
So
yes.
this right now, I mean, it falls under an F,
Yeah.
but the potential there is immense. Like
Yeah.
we can decrease entropy in literally every domain if we could do that. Yeah. We could find a way in reducing dependency, find a way of reducing age, find a way of reducing distraction, whatever it is, right? So this is like the medium.
I would also like to add, I think, depending on the perspective you take, you could argue that having BCIs will allow us to solve the problem of us vs our creation of AI.
Yeah.
Because instead of treating it as us v them, it's us and them. Because if everyone had their own AI per se, then it's not. It's like you've got two races
Yeah.
and you've just merged them.
Exactly.
So it's
That's
not
what I'm
like,
thinking.
oh, I'm against AI. It's like, well, AI is
Yeah.
now my like.
It's like,
We are what?
yeah.
Yeah, maybe this is the key to the alignment problem.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, that's
Maybe, yeah. I want to raise a point regarding dependencies. I read an article I think I sent you from MIT, Max Tegmark, who wrote Life 3.0. Great book, by the way, for audience if you want to just have a read. One of the solutions is to not become like a slave to AI. If we take BCIs, is the fact that we can, because there's only one example in the nature that someone is more intelligent than you, but you're not slave to them, and it's just parenting. Because a parent is more intelligent than the child, at least like I would say in the first 7 years. But at the same time, they care about us, and they try to raise us to the point that, yes, we become more intelligent and mature over time. So if we can find a way to implant that maternal instinct into AI, I think that would be a great solution, which is called oversight, by the way. I'm going to put the article in the description for you guys.
But it's still a dependent relationship because a child is dependent on their parents for survival. Certainly an infant for the first at least 3 years
Yeah.
would not survive by itself in the wild.
But dependency in a good way, though, right?
Is there such a thing?
But you could then argue, like, in the sense of like parental dependency. It's like
Oh, for sure. And parental dependency is a beautiful situation because, like you've raised, Arsha, like the kid is not a slave to their parents.
Yeah.
But the kid is wholly reliant on the parents' goodwill. And I mean, any small bit of research would demonstrate that loving families, good families, are certainly perfect parenting is far from commonplace. Like so many kids are messed up.
Yeah.
And I mean, this comes back to Philip Larkin's poem regarding parenting. Your mom and dad, they fuck you up is the first line of that poem. Yeah. Forgive me, I know it's meant to be PG-13, but that is the first line of the poem. And it brings a very important lineage of trauma into consideration when you look at parenting, because they in turn, he raises, were messed up by their own parents. And, you know, the human story is one of constantly trying to improve, with the setback that we experience pain, and we are very, very excellent at destruction. That is what we're best at, really. So it's still a wholly dependent relationship, and the child is at the complete mercy.
Yeah, but it has a timeline, though.
yeah.
It does, but these don't.
Maybe dependency isn't always a bad thing. Like, okay, we are dependent on eating food to stay alive. We're dependent on drinking.
Yeah.
Maybe in like 200 years' time, we come back and we don't even think we're dependent on these, like, these chips, right? It's just part of our being. Like, part of our being is to eat. Maybe it's that we could take that. We just forget about dependency. Maybe.
Yeah, perhaps. I'd be interested to see that develop for sure.
I mean, I've heard they've been storing so much data in DNAs these days. So what I'm thinking, like, have you heard this, that they say machines store bitmaps and brains store vectors? Like, for example, when a machine loses just one directory, one in their repository, and loses one file, they can't process the whole information from that file.
Yeah.
But with the human brain, why it's way more superior for now is because, for example, we can connect the concepts together. Like, for example, we don't when we think of a dog, the machine thinks of a picture of a dog, but what we think is actually the concept of a dog. So, for example, if there is a wet fur, or I don't know, the smell of a dog, we will instantaneously think of a dog. So our brain, first of all, has the superior processing power for now. What it doesn't have is the memory and the speed of the machines.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have it by such a huge gap. Like, it's like so different. And what I'm thinking is that, are we sure that in the future the organic way of making transhumans is not more possible than the silicon way? I mean, what I'm trying to say is that it could actually happen, because they're now storing data in DNAs.
Yeah.
And if your brain is way stronger than a machine's brain. So there is a possibility that we don't even need chips in our brains. But that's what that's a whole new chapter, maybe some other day. But
I think it's not profitable. That's, I mean, and we'll do an episode later on about
As of now.
AI, AI and pharmaceuticals, and I mean, I guess the whole pharmaceutical paradigm. But I think as a society, the way we are presently structured around profit first over product
yeah,
means that innovation, which isn't profitable first and foremost, but is centered around the personal autonomy and giving people a much greater cognitive function. These products don't create a guaranteed market, right? You're empowering the individual when you could be creating products which do the same thing, but function on a subscription basis.
Yeah, I mean, just came to my mind, maybe a silicone chip is not good because silicone, let's say, doesn't really perish. Maybe you should make a chip that is made from organic material that perishes, and you need to replace it every time.
Yeah.
And it's more compatible
Yeah.
with this matter, right?
Yeah. So, benefits discussed. Let's get into the risks of melding man with machine. These, I think, are plentiful.
Please enlighten us.
So, I was doing a little bit of research on this last night. The first consideration that came to my mind was the idea of cognitive overload.
Yeah.
We are seeing certainly a lot of research around this now, thanks to the big data environment we find ourselves in. And there was a study done, Cognitive Overload, Anxiety, Cognitive Fatigue, Avoidance Behavior, and Data Literacy in Big Data Environments, a wonderful title, by Bibiana Giuduce da Silva Ceza, 2023, from the journal Information Processing and Management, where basically this study was on executives and people whose sole job was to process vast amounts of data and make decisions based on that. One of the study's findings was that there was a significant positive effect between cognitive overload from this big data environment on anxiety and decision paralysis, with avoidance behaviors then being demonstrated by the subjects within the study. Within that, a really interesting idea was raised that it's not just the size of the data which raises apprehension, but the fear of missing data. Because within this big data environment, you're making decisions where you have no idea the scope and the number of sources available. You don't know what you don't know, right? And it was seen that actually a lot of these individuals also expressed fear around missing the data, not just the huge data sets, but the fact that these data sets that they were analyzing might not be fully complete. From there, I was looking to draw ties between anxiety, cognitive overload, and then more serious mental illnesses, schizophrenia, psychosis, that type of region. And there was another study, a case report actually in this instance, of a 17-year-old male who presented anxiety symptoms, quite severe anxiety symptoms, panic attacks, etc. Basically devolved rather quickly after being put on sertraline into a full psychotic break. That's Reese from 2022. Here it was raised by Reese, the writer, that though there is a real and recognized relationship between anxiety as a comorbidity to far more serious psychological consequence, the correlation between the two is often ignored, and they're treated very separately. Anxiety, people don't think of anxiety leading necessarily into schizophrenia or psychosis. People normally consider anxiety as a in differing degrees, either a minor or, I guess, middling, major-ish psychological problem. Now, we are talking about people interacting with data via the digital medium. How much worse is it going to get with a stream of data being provided instantly to that brain? Because Musk is talking about upping the bitrate transfer of Neuralink a great deal. If that is to happen and we're looking to augment our ability to process information by dumping more information into the brain, right, faster, at a rate that our brains don't, at the moment, handle, what does that mean for us moving forwards? What are the neurobiological impacts of that huge amount of data being fed constantly? That's the other thing, because these things, if we're using them, like, when do you turn them off?
Yeah, the immediate thing that comes to mind would be, oh, don't get a chip, just replace the brain. So then the whole processing power can take that compute.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of my initial concerns past like personal autonomy and the legal implications of undesirable outputs from inputs that we can perhaps read but are then manipulated by algorithms, because even like, let's go past any idea of nefarious input. We can discuss that in great depth. But just from a translation standpoint, when we look at translations of poetry, translations of novels, whatever it is, everyone who wants to read Dostoevsky properly learns Russian to read Dostoevsky properly.
Yeah.
Everyone who wants to read Japanese poetry will go and learn Japanese poetry for the full effect, or learn Japanese, sorry, for the poetry, for that full effect, because the language is communicating nuance that perhaps your culture has not focused on already. So a great example, like the Japanese have a word, komorebi, for light being dappled through the leaves of a tree. Like these are concepts which they have brought to be, and a lot of their characters have multiple meanings. So the characters, as far as I know, because I'm no expert linguist, I'm no expert in Japanese poetry either, there's a huge nuance within language. So when you have an input going out of your brain, natural language input, out of the brain being translated for a machine to then action, it's wholly dependent on the architecture of those algorithms for accurate output, right? And frankly, how do we create algorithms that are so comprehensive and perfect that we can guarantee an accurate output every time? That strikes me as a real consideration moving forwards, like past motor neuron inputs from the brain and outputs to, prosthesis and whatnot. Mm-hmm. The idea of translating thought, memory, intent via these machines require like architecture that is, to my mind anyways, mind-blowing.
Literally, right?
Yeah, completely. And
literally,
it was actually the whole neurobiological concern from my end was actually raised initially by the cyberpunk video game, cyberpunk anime, incredible anime, by the way. They have this concept of cyberpsychosis, where the individual who has chipped up, who has, the case which causes the most cyberpsychosis is actually a specific chip designed to dilate or slow time to the user's input so that they are able to gain a lot more data in a very, very, very short space of time, able to act on that to drastically increase the chances of their survival within a combat context. These are military-grade chips within the series. But this idea is, at some point, there's just too much metal. At some point, there's just too much data, and it breaks the mind. And this leads to outputs where the individual is no longer in control and just needs to be put down. Pretty much a rabid animal. Though, again, this is like wholly fictional and speculative, I would not be surprised if we see something similar as we up data rates into the brain, bypassing the filters that our brain already employs to filter the noise from what's actually valuable and meaningful, I would not be surprised if we turned around and saw that actually chucking a lot of data into a human mind has huge consequence, especially like increasing that bit rate of transfer. I would be concerned.
There's a negative point would be there's one way we can grasp understanding, and that's through language.
Yeah.
And many linguists say that there's a paper, I actually forgot, I even wrote an essay on this. It's that language actually influences and changes the way we think.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's like if a person speaking Japanese, the way they see the world is literally in Japanese. It's kind of weird, but it's very different. Like the meanings that they take from the words shape how they see the world.
Absolutely. If a plant has a name, and that name is also applied to different phenomena in nature, all of a sudden that plant is linked to these phenomena in nature thanks to the language. So even if you're not fully conscious of that interaction, your subconscious from being taught the different meanings of that character will have an impact on how you view that plant.
So how we grasp meaning. So in translation, there's a problem in translation, even in, let's say, English.
Yeah.
We all speak English, and we can't even translate, some linguists claim, the full meaning of that word or the concept, and then translate it into language. So let's say we have a brain chip that enables us to grasp that full meaning of what that concept is. Like that one concept, that one word, dog, literally blow your mind. And you've got millions, an infinite amount of language to explore. How is that? Yeah. How are we going to compute? How are we going to handle that?
If you meshed all the different cultural approaches to the word dog, and you just fed that to one individual, that sounds like an atrocious amount of data, actually.
But there's a positive side. Fortunately, the mind, if you take the Cartesian approach, which is mind and matter, mind and physical matter are two separate things. Luckily, mind, it's not physical, and it's sort of almost infinite. We have found, maybe to extrapolate, no limits of memory, human memory.
Yeah.
There's no limits. There's actually we can remember as much as we want.
Yeah.
Sometimes I walk into a library, I'm like, wow, imagine I read all these books, and there's no limit to our memory. So maybe there's a positive side. Maybe we can cram all of that info into our minds. Maybe not cram, that's the wrong word. Just we can
might be the right word.
Integrate all that info into our minds.
Yeah.
With no problem at all.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the rate in which that we put it in our mind. If all this info is going in our mind instantly, then yes, maybe it would explode, implode, whatever. But maybe if we take our time and we find a way to integrate that info, we're limitless.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested from the AI innovators at this table to know your thoughts, Ismail and Arsha, on how the architecture of algorithms affects personal autonomy. I've raised this briefly, but my concern is that past the incredibly complex nature of algorithms that process and translate human intention to these digital interfaces, there's a real risk that not only do you not capture the full extent of that intention, but you actually, by the nature of the architecture of the algorithm, no nefarious intent yet, you limit an individual's expression, freedom of expression, both verbally and, these are going to be used for physical function as well, the augmentation of physical function, so physical expression. How do you both see the impact of the architecture of algorithms on personal autonomy and our freedom to express ourselves as best we can?
Go first. Yeah. First off, I was going to say, leading on from a point from before, in terms of bit rate, I'm not too sure if we're going to have a dilemma where we have, again, another two sects of people, where one of them is you have a Neuralink, but you're still able to do everything you usually do, but just in your brain instead of typing it out. And then the other side of, you have a stream of information that you can control and go and request and whatever. In terms of the architecture, I'd say the way that the data is given to us is important, because if we have a Neuralink in the sense of the data is just given as correct information, because it's like what our brain perceives, right? So if we're just given the information, and keep in mind that when you're researching information, usually you check sources. It's like, how would you know what you're given is true? Because when you're absorbing information yourself, you deduce what is true, what is false.
Yeah, you have time to filter.
Yeah, like a filter, right? So if you're being given the information through the brain's filters, it's like, well, the question comes down to how are we making sure that, or can we make sure that what we are given is true? And in that same respect, those who gave us the opportunity for this chipset, what are their agendas in terms of how we are given this data?
Is it in their? Do you think it's in their interest to provide us an accurate and full understanding of the human opus of knowledge to date, or do you think that actually keeping us in the dark is more advantageous?
I think as with all data at the moment, like there's always going to be an agenda. Whether that agenda comes like through the people who are going to give us the ability to do this,
Yeah.
I'd say in one way, shape, or form, like humans are biased.
Oh, for sure.
But whether we're going to like be left in the dark for some things, I mean, like for sure. Whether it's going to be to the extent of authoritarian data control, not too sure. I think it really does depend on how the market pans out. Are we going to have like open source type models? Are we going to have like proprietary models? Are we going to have like a gap between you pay for your neural chip or you get one from the government? That's going to be a problem.
The stratification and privatization of knowledge seems to be a very interesting point that AI brings to the table, like past BCIs. Like, yeah. Okay, brilliant. Arsha.
Yeah, so first of all, you talked about processing rather than just increasing the speed and computation power, which is very important because I think there's a book called Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari. This guy is always, he always talks about the fact that we need some time to, it's like information fasting. So the way that we process information is just take data, don't read anything or don't have any input. So you need like to fast just for the information that you get, and then that's how you process the information. It's like, when you read something and you have a good sleep and tomorrow you're like, okay, yeah, now I really understand the concept.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's that's a great concern. But at the same time, our brain is, if we take BCIs, it's going to be the same as the way that we develop like LLMs. Because I think I've sent a podcast, Ilya Sutskever.
Yeah.
The one he used to be a co-founder of OpenAI, and now he's building something called Safe Superintelligence. He was talking about the fact that 2020 to 2025 was scalability, basically the computation power, putting data into algorithms. It's the same with our brain, with the exception of we may not be able to change the way that our brain works. So scalability and just increasing the computation wouldn't be the answer to understand all those information that we get from BCIs. So we have to kind of rely on the classical power of the brain because we don't understand. We may have the potential, as Daniel said, to actually, regarding memory, to understand, to be able to handle those amounts of data. But at the same time, we don't have enough understanding of how our brain works. So it might have a sort of quantum mechanic behavior, which is not something that people suggest. Like we always talk about Demis Hassabis, he has this argument of our brain is being only based on classical computation, and there's no sign of quantum computation. If that's the case, yes, there would be a problem of having BCIs and taking loads of data to process. But at the same time, we might be able to enhance the ability to process data with BCIs as well.
Well, I can't believe I'm bringing this up in a positive light, because this is not a happy memory of the human story, frankly. But some of the research that I was digging into around brain remodeling and remapping was the work of the Canadian psychiatrist Donald Ewan Cameron, who, of course, is fairly infamous for his work in the CIA MK Ultra project. For any interested in actually going in reading about what he did, you can find it under the subproject 68 disclosure. It's available. That's been declassified. But he did a lot of work surrounding using trauma to remap the brain and using electroshock therapy for depatterning and rebuilding an individual. Electroshock therapy is still used today in very, very conservative levels compared to what he was using. But even at today's conservative levels, the impact of depolarizing the brain and creating massive dumps of dopamine. Daniel, you'd probably be able to know what this thing does. It's dopamine
Norepinephrine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically adrenaline.
Yeah. And then, give me a sec. I've got this up.
Live research.
Yeah. No, I have it noted down. I just have too many notes here. Regardless, huge dumps of massive hormones in the brain, depolarizing, creating that dump, and then forcing the brain to do a hard reset. They found incredibly capable of depatterning and rebuilding an individual to their whims. So you can become an architect of an individual's mind and perception of reality by doing this depatterning, sorry.
Yeah. So that might be the solution to handling those amounts of data.
That's wiping. How about building?
Wiping. I think we should be building. And I think this is where, Parry and Daniel, I want to get your thoughts on the nefarious interactions that we can see. Because, Parry, you've already mentioned the dangers of hacking into these. And what Cameron's work showed was that if you're able to create this massive dump, it was depolarization that created this dump. But if you're somehow able to manipulate the body's endocrine system and hormones, you're able to program a person. Like, it really is programming in the classical sense. Yeah. What are both of your thoughts on the use of these for control, the manipulation of an individual, past just influence and thought, but actually physical manipulation via these brain chips?
So, okay, low-level programming, maybe we can start there. We can talk about food.
Yeah.
So we are pretty much programmed. It's known that what we eat can also will sort of influence our decisions. There's been a great paper. I don't know the name, but it's been heavily advocated by Robert Sapolsky, which is a strong believer of hard determinism, which is quite a radical view. Yeah. And he says pretty much the biggest indicator of the judge giving like sentencing a person to prison for a long extended period of time is whether they've eaten lunch or not.
That's fascinating.
Literally. So if you've committed a crime, you should hope to go after lunchtime, pretty much. Pretty much. So that's like low-level programming. It influences their decisions. The way we eat sugar, how we sleep, these influence our decisions. On the bigger scale, we can extrapolate out into reprogramming, manipulating hormones, blah, 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 steroids, or straight to the core with a chip, whatever.
Well, it's a far more direct approach, right?
Yeah.
Because we've seen very evidently the state's indifference to using psychological warfare on its people. I mean, COVID-19, I think, was a great case study for this. The British government's use of nudge psychology to enhance compliance.
Oh yeah.
There's evidently no sleep lost over using these incredible and well-documented tactics to influence the behavior of vast swathes of the population. But this is direct. That's nudge messaging. That's a consistent message across the media. So you surround people in this bubble of voices all saying the same thing. And eventually, the person who is the recipient of that data, their perception of reality is shifted because, I mean, you have this group of people who are perceived to be truth tellers. I mean, these are a lot of them newscasters, etc., who are telling you that this is the right way. This is the science.
Yeah.
But this is direct. This isn't. You don't need to use nudge tactics. You don't need to get. You don't need to use regulators to make sure that all major mainstream media is singing from the same hymn book. This individual is out of line. We can just reprogram.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, nudging is a really interesting topic. It was sort of coined by Richard Taylor. He won the Nobel Prize in 2017.
Right.
He's a socio-economist, something like that. And nudging is like in between sort of influence and manipulation.
Yeah.
It's like right in the middle, something like that. Yeah. So if we take the direct approach, we would, like Ismail pointed out, we really need the guys on top of this to have the right morals, ethics, all of these things. I'll take the positive approach. Everything is, you could say, and not manipulation, but a configuration of matter in this sense.
Oh yeah, the fallacy of non-manipulative language is one which has, I think, been wonderfully explained by Laura Dodsworth when she says, like, every interaction we have is, even if it's subconscious, a moment of influence.
Yeah, everything.
You're trying to communicate something to someone. You're trying to express a thought that you hope they will agree with. Or you're trying to get someone to make you a coffee. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, every time you interact with someone, there's no such thing as a wholly non-manipulative interaction.
Yeah, yeah. I think that reprogramming and to develop, it takes a long time for evolution to happen.
Yeah.
And essentially what we're doing is jumping that.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Evolution is slow, yeah.
Yeah, evolution is damn slow.
For a reason, though, yeah. It's a good reason.
Yeah, we can't wait for that.
It's like eventual change is like the norm in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by jumping for BCI, it's sort of like we have to think about the implications on the spot.
Yeah, because it is such a big jump. So
It's
where
such a big jump.
where nature has that kind of slow approach where it iterates over different consequences of evolution, we have to make sure we get it right. Because if we don't, we've just jumped to
I don't want to be that person who always brings up machine learning, but
It's important, Parry. Please.
yeah, let's hear it.
yes. So what I was learning, machine learning, you give some after the output when the machine learning model gives you an output. If it's good, you give a reward to it called the reward signal. And if you think about it, it's kind of like when you train your pet. When they do something good, you give them something to eat.
Conditioned reflex.
Yeah,
Classical
conditioned
conditioning.
reflex.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now if you imagine, if you can control all the hormones, like us humans, let's agree that we're all, before everything, we are animals, okay? It's like humans are animals,
Yeah.
basically. And if you can control the hormones, if you can get the dopamine hit every time, you will be conditioned and programmed, basically, to do that thing over and over again. So that is like it's enough to like have like a simple reward. Now imagine if you can control all the hormones that they can put in your body. So they can basically reprogram you any way they want with reward and a bit negative and positive feedback.
Carrot in the stick.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah, okay. No, for sure. And of course, like, we're talking, I think we're trying to keep this as
The camera is off.
cameras off.
Yeah, no. It's,
Okay, all right, stop recording.
All right.
okay.
So this brings to a close the first part of our transhumanism exploration. But I'm interested to hear from all of our co-hosts whether or not you chip. That's yeah.
That is the closer.
And I'm not saying like, you know, in the perfect situation. I'm saying, are you going to chip? Because that question is going to be posed, I think, sooner than we think. Within the next 10 years, certainly, I think it's going to be a consumer option. So let's start with Parry.
Oh.
It's a consumer option.
Consumer.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yes, no first.
yes, no first. Okay. I think I will not chip. No. Mm-mm. No, I will not chip because the only thing I can rely on my life is basically my own brain. So if that's messed with, I don't know. I can't.
You
I
can't
can't risk
guarantee.
that. No, no, I cannot risk that.
That's a good way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
All right, well, Daniel.
He's definitely going to chip, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be chipping.
Oh my god.
Okay, why?
Not now, obviously. Not with Neuralink now. But I'm all for experimentation. And I think that would drive humanity forwards. And I would like to be I would like to have a first person perspective on that.
Sure.
So, yeah, I trust myself enough. And I feel like, yeah, I would like to think I have enough awareness myself. Of course, I would have to read the T&Cs. I'd have to see whether I can remove it or not. But even, let's say I can't remove it. I'm still leaning towards yes.
Okay.
I mean, when humans have different personalities before and after lunch, what do you expect? Like when chipped and before chipped and after chipped?
I'll be a god.
There we are.
By the way,
The pursuit of education.
Soros
I will say,
attitude.
I will say something like what we were talking about, Prometheus.
Yeah.
When we discovered fire,
Yeah.
it turned us from humans to the gods. We are the gods now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly
Will
to
power,
the rest
will
of Mother Nature. That is
I'm
true.
sorry.
Ismail.
Okay. Depends where I am in 10 years. I'll say that. But
Yes, no first.
yes, but under specific conditions. So so it depends. Like I said, what I mean by where I am in 10 years is if I am in a position where I am still optimizing like my life, I'm still like optimizing my life, how I do things. It's not like the whole world is in like a freaking war zone or something. If I'm in a situation where I've got to a point where I want to like focus on myself in a sense, then yeah, I probably won't chip. But if I'm in a position where I still want to push, I don't know, if I'm talking like space exploration, for example, or if I'm even with like ditch space exploration, if I am working on technological advancements or whatever it is, in my current state as I am, if I had a chip that would allow me to interact with my computer without me touching it, that's awesome. That's like awesome. Like what I'm working on now with my startup, if I could do that in the background, that would save me time.
Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't have to like journey time. Obviously, aside from the concentration on like biking or whatever, journey time with the processing would mean you've got as much time as you want, depending on how you process it. Like Daniel said, TNCs are important. If it's anything to do, like if the chip has anything to do with data that is opinionated, or data that I don't control the flow of, I probably won't. But then again, it all depends on how it is. Like if we're in a cyberpunk type era in like 10, 15 years, hell yeah. Like, it's just, it's an interesting time to live.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you're in a position where you're fully organic in a cyberpunk world, like you're not integrated per se, it really does depend on how you see it.
Yeah.
But I think it would be cool to see both sides, like both the non-chip side and the chip side. So I'll probably be on the fence for now.
Yeah. Just think of it as the concept itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. We wouldn't need a split keyboard, man.
Oh yeah.
Right, Arsha, where are you on this one?
If you would ask me like a year ago, I would say very firm yes. Now I say yes under some circumstances. If I'm involved in creating the chip, I would take it because I trust myself to, first of all, not to control people and have those ethical boundaries for myself and the whole society. So if I'm involved in creating the chip, yes, I would take it. I'm losing trust on the people who are creating the chip, which is unfortunate. Elon, he's a hero for me, but his reasoning is different now compared to, I would say, like 6 years ago. I have this ideology of people, product, profit. I think for him is now product, people, profit.
Oh, yeah.
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 And when you put the product first, you wouldn't really care about people. You just care about the mission. But if it's not for humanity, then that wouldn't be like a good thing. But I would take it because I still think if I don't take it, I would be extinct, or I would die, or I would lose the future. That's because I'm optimistic. So I think there's always a solution. If it goes wrong, we find a way for it to make it right. So that's my argument.
It's interesting because we all need to approach this as kind of a first adopter perspective.
Yeah.
It's not like this is, this technology's been out for a little while. We know how to defend ourselves. We know how to defend our perception of reality. It is really, really fresh. I'm torn. Well, I think we're all kind of torn, but I'm further towards no than I am yes. Mm-hmm. Because the only situation where I would feel comfortable and confident in the use of one of these technologies was a situation where I had developed this chip. I had trained whatever
so you're
machine was
involved.
sitting behind it, and it was a closed loop. So I was fully in control of the inputs and the outputs. That would be the only situation. And even then, this is a perfect world because people are very, very good at adapting to these situations. And no matter how good a defense is, there will always be someone who's capable of breaking through. Mm-hmm. So no matter how much I trust myself with my perception of reality, which frankly, I'm constantly trying to learn, I don't have a good understanding of reality as it is. I would not trust a chip in my mind that could be influenced in any way by someone else because it's a direct influence where I don't have the wonderful tool of that filter, that ability to turn around and assess the information before I kind of commit it to my perception of reality. I'm able to control the deeper level of processing. So I'm at a no for now. We'll see where it goes. Yeah. I also have concerns around the founders, and I have concerns around like this drive for immortality. I think life is beautiful because it's short. Yeah. I think that's not to say that we shouldn't be trying to lengthen it and improve its quality. I think that's a wonderful pursuit, but I think the idea of transhuman existence where death is no longer a guarantee is one where actually we lose the value of human life.
Yeah, I mean I have different perspective. I don't know if we have time, but I just bring it up for the second part. I was against I was against longevity, but now I think being immortal is kind of interesting to explore. To explore, not to live, but to explore, because
I mean the concept of infinity is a terrifying one to my mind. Like you start thinking about endless days.
And then
That's-
there would
that's
be a
t-
question of having meaning without
Yeah,
mortality, which is
exactly.
right. So,
Imagine having an infinite life in an infinite space time, infinite possibilities.
How do you process that amount of data? Because I mean, this isn't just an infinite life. This is an infinite amount of data. And with that, tune in to the next episode on
Yeah.
transhumanism, where we dig deeper into the questions surrounding
thank you guys.
adopting
Thank
brain
you.
Thanks so much for
interfaces.
watching. See you in the next one.
Indeed.
Bye bye.